we've seen time and again some of the largest banks in America involved in money laundering with drug cartels, some of the largest drug cartels, some of the largest drug busts. We've seen tremendous amounts of money involved, and yet we haven't seen anybody from any of these banks go to jail. Now, we recently had a money laundering case that was talked about in March of this year. And when it was brought up, the Attorney General decided that they were going to go very light on HSBC. And they gave them essentially a slap on the wrist. They fined them $1.9 billion, which sounds like a lot of money, but that was only 5 weeks' worth of their income. And considering the amount of time that this had been going on and the details of what had happened, people were generally shocked at what happened. But then right after that, we saw the same thing happen with the LIBOR scandal involving huge amounts of money and manipulation of markets. And again, the Department of Justice just gave them a pass and said, these banks are too big to fail. We have to worry about the banks more than we have to worry about the integrity of our government, more than we have to worry about the safety and the security of our citizens. Because, you know, the war on drugs and the war on terror, we're supposed to be fighting those, and yet it's the government that is funding it and these giant banks that are funding it. We have on line with us Everett Stern, and he was working at HSB. How you doing, Everett?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
Doing fine. Now, this case that just came out in March, they had been given a cease and desist order back in 2010. The money laundering had been going on from 2004 to 2010, and they said they were going to stop that. And that was part of the terms of why they went light on them. They in the settlement agreements, they cited HSBC's cooperation and remediation efforts as a basis for leniency in the terms imposed, and yet you started after this cease and desist order was in, after they supposedly had taken measures to stop the money laundering. Tell us about what you saw when you were there. Tell us about your experience and the experience of people that you saw that were hired there.
Yeah, sure. First, before I do that, if I could just comment that, you know, what the Obama administration doesn't understand is that, you know, by giving a slap on the wrist to these banks and by engaging in these deferred prosecution agreements, you know, their concern is that it will cause a financial crisis if they criminally prosecute these banks. And what's not being understood here is that if there's another 9/11, that's going to cause another financial crisis. I think that's being missed. But when I started in October of 2010, you know, I was part of the crew that was brought in to clean up their act, and you know, what HSBC did was create a sham anti-money laundering compliance program. I mean, they went ahead and they took their department of 15 compliance officers, if you want to even call them that, and they sold off their credit card division to Capital One, fired a whole bunch of debt collectors and customer service reps, and then about a week later, they rehired them as anti-money laundering compliance officers, which is crazy to improve transactions. These
are people who had no experience in money laundering, no experience in how to detect that, or they were just debt collectors that were rehired.
Right, exactly. I mean, to be honest with you, I wouldn't even trust them to collect debt.